And Happy New Year, everybody. I believe this is the first time I've actually given a talk to the fellowship. I'm going to start out by thanking Michael for singing Imagine. That's one of my favorite songs. I sing it a lot on my karaoke machine. But I'm going to start out with, I've been on this planet for 90 years. I'm going to tell you what things were like a long time ago. Back in 1937, my father bought a house in West University for $3,000. $3,000. 10 years later, with 5 children, he bought a house in Southside Place, a 2-story house for $17,000. It had an attic fan. And this was before air conditioning, before television. All that has come, in much more recent years. I grew up in Houston, in West University Place. I went to West University Elementary, Pershing Junior High, and Lamar High School. And after Lamar High School, that summer, I worked at Cycles downtown in men's clothing department for $160 a month for 6 days a week. Rode the bus down there and helped people with the men with their purchases of suits and so forth to make sure that they fit. And after that summer, I went to Texas A&M, which was all boys at that time. I was in this Squadron 20, and I enjoyed my time up there, but I decided I wanted more of a social life, so I came back to the University of Houston and joined a fraternity called Yan Bei, which means bottoms up in Chinese. That was back in Houston. Anyway, after I graduated from the University of Houston, one of my first jobs was I took a federal employee entrance exam and worked in New Orleans for the U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division. I realized there that I couldn't really get up and talk to a group of people like I am now. I was too shy to do that. So I knew I needed to do something like that because if I wanted to advance in any kind of job, you got to be able to speak. So I joined Toastmasters Club in New Orleans, and they every one of their weekly meetings, you either give a speech or criticize somebody else's speech. So I highly recommend Toastmasters if you want to improve your speaking skills or get the freedom to more or less talk to people. And when I came back to Houston after that year in New Orleans and started teaching at Black Junior High, which is in the Oak Forest area. I taught mathematics there, and they had corporal punishment, which I did some of that myself. And I started thinking, why are we doing this? And so I stopped after a while. And then I took a job in Washington, D.C. with the Interstate Commerce Commission. And it was a desk job up there. I enjoyed being in D.C. because there's so much going on there with the government. I got to go to LBJ's inaugural gala. And first of all, when I called about going to it, they said, you can go, but it's $1,000 per person. So I said, do they need any ushers? So they did, and they called me, and I had another one of my friends come up from Houston and join in that. We ushered at the gala. We got to see Rudolph Nureyev do the ballet, and all that. It was quite an evening at the gala. And while I was there, I went to a singles dance club called the College Graduates Club. They had dances with bands and so forth. And so after my year in D.C., I came back to Houston and formed my own club called the College Club. It was for single people aged 21 to 35, and we had dances every week at hotels or other places. We had a band, and drinks then sold for like only $1, and I'd get a 20-cent kickback on the drinks. So anyway, that worked out. It was a popular club for about 3 years with singles coming to meet each other and dance. Anyway, I was teaching school at the same time, and at this time at Lincoln Middle School, which is in the 4th Ward, and there was still some more corporal punishment going on. And I decided that was wrong, so I formed an organization, which John mentioned, called People Opposed to Paddling Students, or POPs. And we created this T-shirt back in 1991, and I worked on that issue. I'd hear about these cases and go to to the school board meetings and I addressed the school board about getting rid of corporal punishment. To me, it's obviously child abuse because the kids are bruised and so forth. And as a result of that, I got invited to be on the Phil Donahue show and Good Morning America, and one called The Shirley Show in Toronto, and 3 more national shows to talk about our efforts to get rid of this child abuse in our schools. So I worked on that, and right now Texas has never actually gotten rid of it, but it's gone from our big cities. We have a state representative from Houston named Alma Allen. She's a former teacher and a former principal. She's been introducing these bills every session to abolish it, but sometimes they're not even brought up in the Education Committee for a hearing. But I commend her for sticking with that. So I was really glad that we have eliminated that corporal punishment. And I also decided not to spank my child, who is sitting right here, Melody. And so it's better to urge parents now to don't spank your children, talk to them with love and respect, and you can have a much better relationship with them, and they'll do what you want them to do if you treat them with respect and love. I've been active with a number of organizations over the years, like the ACLU, the Amnesty International, and so forth, and enjoyed being active with them. And when you volunteer for an organization, you learn a lot about the organization. You eventually become president. I was president of the Humanist of Houston for 5 years, and the West Houston Democrats for 4 years. We had weekly or monthly meetings, and that worked out well. So I highly recommend being a volunteer. One time after I was back, I took a course in economics, like working toward a master's degree, and I researched the Houston Light and Power Company, which was our electric company. And they were managed by the city of Houston. The city council would determine with them what their rate should be. While going over their books, I discovered that about 50% of their income was profit. I thought that was too high. So I went before city council and urged them to cut the rates by 20%. And I thought they could cut it by 20%, and they would still have enough of a profit. And I got a call from the president of Houston Light and Power. He said, "What are you trying to do?" Anyway, they didn't actually reduce the rates then, but I thought it was worth a try. Later on, let's see, I came to over here to this church as a result of my friend Bert Golding. He's passed away now, but he came to this church, and he and I used to go to a lot of the same events, and we kind of joked that we saw more of each other than we did of our wives. I don't know if I mentioned before, but Jimmy Carter of course, he just passed recently. When I was a young boy, I was called Jimmy. When I became an adult, I said I needed more of an adult name, so I went to James. And then Jimmy Carter came along, and I said, if Jimmy Carter can do it, I can do it too. So I went back to Jimmy. And I've had the luck of being able to talk face to face with 3 different presidents. Jimmy Carter spoke once at the Rothko Chapel, and he took questions from the audience. I said, don't you think that hitting school kids or spanking school kids with a wooden board is child abuse? His answer was, we spanked our boys, but when Amy came along, we stopped spanking. And then I saw him one other time, and I said, what can I do to help you get elected? He said, simply, vote for me. So that was it. And then Bill Clinton, I saw him at the Warwick Hotel. It was some kind of reception. And I said, one of the best things you could do would be to abolish the death penalty. He turned and walked off without a word. And then later on, I saw him again when I was touring the White House. he came out and talked to us as we were approaching the White House. We had a little bit of a conversation, and I said, "Where's Hillary and Chelsea?" He said, "Oh, they're still sleeping." And then George H.W. Bush, he was running for Congress and I was running for state rep, and so we got to know each other at those various meetings. And I invited him and his wife to my wedding, and they didn't come, but they did send a wedding gift. So I always enjoyed talking to George H.W. Bush. Anyhow, let's see. One of my more recent causes is solitary confinement in Texas prisons. There was an article in the New York Times about Dennis Hope, who had spent 27 years in solitary. Texas is one of the worst states for solitary confinement. They have, anyway, this Dennis Hope spent 27 years in solitary in a prison cell that measures 9 by 6 feet, smaller than a compact car. He's suffering from depression and paranoia and fears he's going insane. I've written letters to him and talked to him on the phone several times. And he has attorneys that are trying to argue that long-term solitary violates our Constitution as being both cruel and unusual, but they have not gone along with his hopes yet. Texas is the leader in the prolonged use of solitary confinement. More than 500 prisoners have served more than 10 years in solitary, and 138 have served more than 20. I was shocked to find that they have virtually no contact with other human beings. Many have spent 5, 10, and more than 20 years. This is a very depressing and horrible way to treat our fellow human beings. Senator John Whitmire, when he was chair of the Texas Senate Criminal Justice Committee, said, "I've been concerned about their overall use of," and instead of calling it solitary confinement, the state calls it administrative segregation, which means the same thing as solitary confinement. He said he's been more than concerned about it, and he's convinced that if you're not emotionally disturbed when you go in there, you will be when you get out. And psychiatry experts agree that solitary confinement can harm any prisoner, but is especially detrimental for those with mental illness. The isolation and sensory deprivation often exacerbate symptoms. They are in their cell for 23 hours a day. They get 1 hour out for exercise. Can you imagine sitting in one little room by yourself all day, nobody to talk to? That would drive people crazy. And our former Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy did say it drives men mad. And current Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said it comes perilously close to a penal tomb. So I went to speak to the board of the Texas prison system in Galveston and urged them to modify solitary. The United Nations has urged that solitary confinement be no more than 15 days, and so that would be a big improvement over our current status of having men there in solitary for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So I advocate for that. If you want to help out, you can also urge your state representatives to pass a bill like that to reduce or modify solitary confinement. Let's see here. In my neighborhood, we had a recycling pickup, but the company that picked it up raised the rates, and the local board said, oh, that they couldn't afford it anymore, and so they dropped the recycling. But I think I'm urging them to bring it back. I think we can afford it, and why throw something in the trash when you can recycle it and use it again? I feel guilty throwing paper, plastic, and stuff like that in the garbage. When right now it goes in the garbage because they dropped the recycling program. I'm speaking out on that and hoping that they do bring it back. And I think most of the neighbors are favored bringing it back also. Another big cause, I think the best thing that our country could do for the whole country would be to improve education, make it more available to more people. And so I advocate free tuition in public colleges. This would allow every child, whether poor or wealthy, to go to college as it would be paid for by the state. Just like we pay for our public schools now, we would increase that by 4 more years. That would result in people getting better jobs, making more money, and making smarter decisions. So I think increasing education is the #1 issue that can help our country and the whole world. When you have more people that are more educated, they make smarter decisions and help to make a better world. Anyway, I don't have too much more. I thank y'all for coming today and being here to listen to my talk. And I love every one of you, and I'm glad you're all good people. And I look forward to continuing working together for a better world right here. You can do it too. You can all do something to make a better world. Have a great day and a great year. I love you. Thanks a lot.